So far in this three-part series on X-Men Reign of X Theories, we've covered the first 11 teasers from Marvel's promo image, and on part 3 of 3 today I'll wrap things up with the final X images, teaching where the Rock's The Reign of X is heading. We've covered, again, Mad Jim Jasper's through Sword. Today we will cover Wolverine and Synch coming out of the vault, Nimrod, Jean Grey and Scott Summers, Cyclops, the shadow figures behind them, the Shadow King, or is it? And finally, Nightcrawler. Again, today we're going through Marvel's Reign of X teasers. If you've been enjoying all of these teasers and theories and predictions and enjoy, casting some of your own, definitely do so in the comments here and consider liking and subscribing the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel. I'm Dave. You can find all my stuff at comicbookherald.com. This is Krakin Krakoa number 130, and your subscription or comment or like or just sharing, word of mouth, even just viewing is greatly, greatly appreciated. Now, please note, spoilers for the Dawn of X, for the Hickman era of X-Men previously, will almost certainly follow as I prognosticate where things may be heading in Marvel's Reign of X at the very end of 2020 here and into 2021 and beyond. Number 12 on the promo teaser, we got Wolverine, Laura Kinney, and Synch coming out of the vault. All right, out of the vault after seeing the team enter back in X-Men number 5, and we know it will have been hundreds, if not thousands, or some exceedingly large number of years since Wolverine, Synch, and Darwin all went into the vault to explore what was going on with this threat to mutant kind. They're gonna come back changed, right? And with some very important information, most likely. Now, in the teaser image, we notice that Darwin is missing, which implies a possibility that he's either still trapped in the vault, has turned sides in the vault, died in the vault, or, there wasn't room on the teaser. I talked about this a little bit in Krakin Krakoa number 125, the live episode I did with Verno of the Cerebros and Blurred Without Fear, but my initial theory that Laura, Synch, and Darwin would come back as potential sleeper agents of the vault is in play. I do feel like it would be too duplicative, right, of what we've just seen from Summoner in X-Men and Ten of Swords, not to mention Omega Red or the mysterious sleeper agent in X-Force. I think the most likely scenario here is that these X-Men all return, narrowly escaping with their lives, perhaps losing Darwin to the vault. Maybe Darwin needed his mutant ability is basically survival of the fittest. He can adapt to whatever. Maybe he adapts to be like the children of the vault in order to survive in the vault and becomes one of them. And I think probably the real thing that's going to come out of this is that Laura, Synch, they're going to come out and they're going to tell the X-Men, hey, it's worse than we all thought. The Children of the Vault have been teased since Hickman's X-Men number 1, and Hickman has Professor X calling them the greatest threat to mutant kind, implying they are even greater or on par with Sentinels and, of course, like the ultimate Sentinel threat, Nimrod. More than anything, I'm eager to hear Laura and Co.'s first-hand account of life inside the vault. We saw those visuals. They're done by R.B. Silva in that X-Men number 5 issue. They're really, really cool about what it's like to actually live inside of the vault. I want to hear everything. I would definitely prefer it if X-Men number 5, whatever issue number it's going to be when Laura and Synch come back, if it's going to be, I think it's 18, if it's going to be like flashbacks showing us life inside the vault, I really want to know what it's like in there. And remember too, in Moira McTaggart's Sixth Life that we saw in House and Powers, it's the post-human Homo Novissima that nearly ended all for her, okay? Not actually just the machines themselves, not the actual machines led by Nimrod and Sentinel technology. It's actually like the man-machine hybrid. I think this is something that the Vault and the Children of the Vault are a lot closer to. It's interesting to consider, like, what if they ally themselves with the man-machine, the coming Homo Novissima. Now, one thing that lingers in my mind is when we talk about alliances in X-Men right now, and the mutants of Krakoa adding all these new assets to their ranks. They've added the Brood, they've added the Vescora in some measure, the mutants of Araco. The Children of the Vault joining sides with either mutant kind or humankind, or again, kind of machine kind, or like Orcus, for example, a human-led initiative, it would be a huge swing in the ultimate man-machine mutant war. Unlike the Brood, though, where, Brood eating the king egg and making the Brood a tentative ally of mutants inverts decades of repetitive Brood stories, I don't see the Children of the Vault easily allying with Krakoa as a necessary solution here. I think they will remain true enemies, and that the return of our mutants from the Vault will reveal the full scale of their plans. I don't think it's going to be as easy as saying, like, oh, we're pals now, the Children of the Vault are on our side too. I do want to shout out too, like Verno from the Cerebros on our live stream that we did about, the Ten of Swords postgame, did mention this theory of an organic Nimrod coming to fruition through the Vault, which is really cool and real interesting as well, and that actually transitions pretty smoothly into the next teaser on the list, which is number 13. Nimrod. Now, it's definitely to Hickman, R.B. Silva, and Powers of 10's credit that a visual of Nimrod's head is pretty unanimously the most exciting visual tease in X-Men today. Like, it was definitely not the case prior to House and Powers. Last we saw in X-Men number 6, it was revealed that the X-Men's grand sacrifice to prevent the Mother Mold facility from coming online may have been for naught, as Orchis was still developing a Nimrod, perhaps in response to that assault we saw in House of X number 4 on their original Orchis facility. In that same issue, it's revealed that Mystique set up a secret Krakoan gate within Orchis, and that she's using it to infiltrate the self-appointed protectors of humanity. So the Krakoans have a mole on the inside, but of course Mystique is not actually taking out Nimrod as of yet. I mean, it might seem easy enough for Mystique to use her status as a mole to disable this Nimrod project before it can come online, but we also know that Professor X and Magneto are giving her the runaround on resurrecting her wife, Destiny. And they're doing this because Moira X famously told them no precogs can be allowed on Krakoa for still somewhat mysterious reasons. Last we see from Mystique in a final vision from Destiny is Destiny telling Mystique that if they won't bring her back, she should burn it all down. So Mystique's in this position where Destiny's final words are telling her to sabotage Krakoa. Professor and Magneto are messing with her, and it's creating a pretty understandable environment for revenge, and she's the only mutant seemingly in position to allow a Nimrod to come online and destroy the Krakoan dream. Like, Mystique is watching this firsthand and seemingly has the most access and ability to stop it. While all this seems very possible, if Mystique allows Nimrod, right, to come online, that also hurts her. She is a mutant, and seemingly removes her chances of a resurrected Destiny as well, right? Like, a successful Krakoan nation state is how Destiny can be resurrected, right? Like, that, destroying that by bringing a Nimrod to fruition, it's very much cutting off your nose to spite your face. Although, if you look at Mystique's first appearance with the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, their role is intended initially to assassinate Senator Kelly, which would actually set off the rise of the Days of Future Past timeline, aka the rise of Nimrod. And this is back in Uncanny X-Men 141 and 142. So it would not be the first time that Destiny's visions were misinterpreted in a way that could be devastating for mutant kind, despite actions intended to protect them. My prediction here is we won't actually see Nimrod come back online in this reign of X, but we will say a whole lot of conversation about the possibility and Mystique using this position as a bargaining chip to bring back Destiny. I will say too, I don't think we will see the eradication of Nimrod anytime soon either. Again, that character and that villain was set up as too cool, like too fascinating of a threat to take Nimrod out of the picture at this stage either. So again, I think it will be a lot of scene setting about Mystique, using this as a chip to get Destiny back. I think in the Reign of X, maybe we do see the resurrection, or at least Mystique's plans to lead to the resurrection of Destiny. I think it's time for that chip to fall as well. Moving on to number 14 with Jean Grey and Scott Summers, of course, two mutants who need no introduction. I talked about this a fair amount during the concluding trilogy of Ten of Swords issues, but Cyclops and Jean Grey drive the return of the heroic X-Men by the event's end in a pretty deliberate declaration that the Krakoan era of no X-Men was at an end. I'm hopeful that this trend continues in the pages of the Hickman written X-Men series, which makes sense in a series that is centered on Scott and House Summers through a series of various vignettes on the Krakoa-verse. This is something that will need to be fleshed out more as the concept progresses, but the distinction from Ten of Swords is essentially what it means to be Krakoan, for example, mutant, versus what it means to be part of the X-Men, for example, hero. It's semantics to a degree, but not all Krakoans are X-Men, right? It's a prestigious class for certain highly trained mutants willing to engage in heroics, historically to protect a world that fears and hates them. As Cyclops asserts in Ten of Swords 2, being X-Men means you do the right heroic thing, even if it's not the pragmatic utilitarian humanitarian thing that means the best or safest outcome for the nation. It'll be interesting to see Scott and Jean continue to push forward with this definition of being X-Men in this era. This got me thinking too about action Scott has taken in Hickman's X-Men so far, and generally they're either reactive, hey, there's an alien invasion of the Brood, we should do something, or proactive, specifically in the name of Krakoan directives, hijacking an Orcus facility or famously raiding the Orcus Mother Mold facility in House of X. I'm pretty curious what it will mean for the team to theoretically identify as X-Men again, where they are going out of their way to do the right heroic thing, even though it is not specifically a Krakoan directive. We've seen examples of this actually very, very recently in other non-X-Line comics. For example, in Champions number 3, Cyclops, Scott Summers, shows up to protect the currently outlawed teen vigilante Champions team, including like Kamala Khan, Ironheart, Miles Morales, and I think Dust, among others, right? So like you have Cyclops saying, I'm going to do the X-Men thing, and step out and do this heroic act that does not necessarily fit with Krakoan goals. We see a similar thing in King in Black, number 1, where the X-Men show up in a very like, hey, we're here to defend the Earth for everyone role, okay? And those are non-X-Office comics, so like there's some, potential, like they're not as aligned with the X creative team, but it's interesting to see them functioning in that role outside of the X-Line. All right, with the shadow figures of behind Scott and Jean. And let's actually go back to that image for just a second, because I think it's interesting to look at, okay? So you have these shadow figures that are behind Scott and Jean. Now, to me, if you notice, like the hair on the far left image, the hood on the far right image, to me, these look, my first guess, like Jubilee, Captain Avalon, Betsy Braddock, and Richter, okay? Essentially our core unit of Excalibur, which I suppose would be silhouetted, because we haven't actually seen the official return of Betsy Braddock yet, although I have very little doubt we will. Now, on the upcoming issue of Excalibur, the first 10 of Swords in the first Reign of X issue of Excalibur, Betsy Braddock is not pictured with the team on the cover. And if you remember in 10 of Swords, in her sword fight against Iska the Unbeaten, Betsy was shattered into a bajillion different pieces, effectively seemingly by Saturnine, the omniversal Majestrix of Otherworld. And although the Captain Britain Corps has been restored and been restored as multiversal versions of Betsy Braddock, the official Earth 616 Betsy Prime is still sort of lost to the ether. I think Excalibur will be about finding her, and I think that is why we are seeing these shadowy figures cloaked in shadow. If it's not that, though, and visually I'm pretty confident it should be, I do like the idea that these shadows could represent 4 of the characters that will be a part of Scott and Jean's new X-Men, or even the new Children of the Atom, which will launch allegedly in 2021. It got me thinking. I interviewed author Carrie Harris about her X-Men YA prose novel X-Men Liberty and Justice for All somewhat recently, and it does a really nice job leaning into like the Uncanny X-Men, like the Bendis Uncanny X-Men era, and I quite like the idea of Scott and Jean, even though Jean's not there in that era specifically, back in a role as educators and leaders of young mutants coming into their own. I think if you put like Scott and Jean saying, hey, we're the X-Men now, we are the heroes of Krakoa, and you put the Children of the Atom sort of learning under their wings, I actually think that's a really good fit for that team, and I would love to see it progress. It doesn't need to be like the sole place where we see them, because I think they have a lot to do in the Hickman written X-Men as well, but I think that could be a nice fit for the new developing young, X-Men in training effectively. All right, number 16 on the list, I've got the Shadow King. You may have someone else, and we're going to talk about that. But for me, this looks like the Shadow King. Now, the last time we saw Shadow King was a one-page random appearance at the conclusion of Empire X-Men number 2, as part of Krakoa's Psychic Army. The longtime arch-nemesis of Professor X and many of the X-Men, namely Storm, proceeded to never show up again, leading to what I see as one of 3 possibilities. 1. Amal Farouk running out into battle on his wild mechanical spider legs he's had since Astonishing X-Men, written by Charles Soule, was a mistake that slipped past editorial, i.e. that mutant should not have been shown yet. It's very possible. It seems obvious, but it's possible. Number 2, Amal Farouk is on Krakoa, but free of the Shadow King entity, and the remainder of Empire X-Men simply chose not to show him, okay? So this was intentional, this was not an accident, but he's not actually possessed by Shadow King in this moment. That's a possibility as well. Number 3, my personal theory that Amal and the Shadow King entity are still one unit, and will show up unexpectedly behind the scenes in a way that only readers can discern until it's too late for Professor X and those damn Krakoans. And yes, I'm talking about just doing little like one-off Shadow King pop-ups throughout various X-Men comics to make all readers think we're going crazy and I'm so here for it. I would absolutely love this approach to the Shadow King in this era of X-Men, to have him just mysteriously showing up until it's time for the official Shadow King story that we are going to get in Reign of X. It continues to be very exciting to me to think about the Shadow King's role on Krakoa or in the Krakoa era of X-Men. Questions like, is the entity allowed on Krakoa, especially given antagonistic relationship with Professor X and of course many others, remain very open. Like I don't know. For me, it was like, if you think about names of individuals or entities that Professor X would be like, yeah, I don't want them on Krakoa, it's like Shadow King and Cassandra Nova are like number 1, number 2, and then for Moira, obviously, it's like Destiny and Blindfold because they're precognitive, But plus, there's plenty we don't know about Professor X's transformation from a man called X, which is where we left him again in that soul-written Astonishing X-Men, to the Cerebro-wearing X of the Hickman era. Shadow King is the last link, effectively, right? Like Shadow King had Professor X in his sort of eternal tormenting prison and then was freed. In the pages of that Astonishing X-Men run, Professor X comes out of it, he takes over Phantom X's body, it's a whole thing, but he's alive, he says, call me X, not Professor X right now, and then we jump to House and Powers, okay? So there's a whole story there. Could the Shadow King be involved? There's some story to develop. Now, I have heard from a number of listeners wondering whether that image teaser could be Brew instead, aka King of the Brood, instead of Big Daddy SK. My first reaction was no chance. Like, it definitely looks like Shadow King to me, but admittedly, if you look at the shading of Brew's adorable little glasses and naturally his fangs, the teaser image does kind of match. And we know the Brood will play a role, right? So it would not be suspicious by any measure if the Brood were teased on this image. I do think it's kind of interesting to consider like Brew losing himself to his Brood nature. Now that he ate the King Egg, he became King of the Brood. This has been a thing that Brood has kind of fought against, right? Like being an ally of the X-Men, having empathy, having his own intelligence, but also being Brood by nature, being born to this race, now really like ingraining himself in Brood society. Could this be a thing where quote unquote evil Brood becomes more likely and more of a threat? I mean, maybe that alliance, I've been assuming like, okay, he's Brew's King of the Brood now, therefore the Brood are, totally on the X-Men side. Maybe that alliance is more tenuous than we've been assuming, and there will have to be some work done to sort of cement like what it means for these two different like alien races to work together. The final teaser image on the Reign of X promo card is Nightcrawler holding what appears to be the Book of X. Following up on the conversation between Nightcrawler and Cyclops in X-Men number 7, when Kurt tells Scott he's thinking about starting a mutant religion, we see Kurt here holding the Bible of X, or better, their sacred text. Capital X, baby. Nightcrawler has long been known as the spiritual member of the all-new, all-different 75 X-Men lineup, at least in the traditional sense of a believer in popular religion, in Kurt's case Catholicism, and literally studied to become a priest at one point, so standing up as the leader of a mutant religion is a really great fit for the character. It makes a ton of sense historically. Purely on a cultural level, I'm deeply fascinated with the idea of starting a modern religion, specifically designed for a group of people who have never really had a religion to call their own. What does that look like? Is it partly mutant history with guiding principles from leaders like Apocalypse and Professor X, reworking the good bits of spiritual literature like the Bible or Quran, but with language specific to mutants, Kurt locking himself in the mysterious tower and sipping Krakoan cognac until inspiration strikes, right? Could be any of these things. I do think, like, one theory I have here is that all the quotes we've seen at the front of issues, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, those could be lines integrated into this Book of X. Like, I could see those being parts of the scripture, especially the Kurt quotes that we're seeing often in front of Hellions. I think that would just make a lot of sense. Like, one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is like, where's that information coming from, right? We have these quotes. I think that's coming from the Book of X, but then we have all these data pages too, and it's like, who's keeping these files? Like, who's writing these things? A lot of times maybe there are different answers, but I think in case of the quotes, we might actually have had access to these scriptures of X for a period of time and just not really realize that's what we were seeing. Better still, we do have reason to believe that this mutant religion will have much greater significance than just giving Kurt something to do. For starters, in House and Powers, there are multiple instances where religious institutions arise around man-machine blending. In Moira's Ninth Life during the Apocalypse timeline, for example, and in favor of ascension to the Phalanx in Moira's Sixth Life with Homo Novissima. More directly, the Cardinal Chimeras of Moira's Ninth Life look a ton like Nightcrawler, and are the pacifist religious sect of Sinister's mutant chimeras. Presumably, this follows from Nightcrawler leaning into similar religious interests in Life 9, and then those characters, really just like becoming sort of this, I don't know they're not exact clones of Nightcrawler, but they are very much like dedicated to his spirit and his mission. It's interesting to consider, too, that Kurt has found the mysterious tower on Krakoa that only he can access via teleportation, which I continue to find really, really interesting, and that way back in House of 10, or House of X, we see 3 cards, Cardinal and the tower among them, and it's making these connections between, okay, we've basically got like 2/3 of this connected very closely to Nightcrawler. That's really interesting. Why was this teased so heavily, right? What is the impact going to be? Every implication is that Kurt's forays into mutant religion have a lot more to do with the endgame of our story than that may appear at first glance. I think there's going to be a really deeply integrated thing where maybe it's just Kurt's religion sort of setting the template for like the inevitability of what mutant futures look like. Maybe it starts carving out what it is that Moira's endgame is going to be. Maybe he taps into that a little bit. So I'm really interested to see Kurt's religion developing here in the Reign of X. But I want to hear what you are interested in. Let me know in the comments here. What do you think is going to happen in the Reign of X? It can be based on any of these images. Again, this was part 3 of 3. So if you missed the first 2, there will be links in the show notes. And of course, if you subscribe to the Comic Book Herald channel, you will get early access to everything as it comes out. And you can check out like the Krakin Krakoa playlist. I'm going to have a playlist for just Reign of X videos where I do reviews of X-Men comics every single week, the day they come out typically. And you can find all that there here on the Comic Book Herald channel. So thanks everybody who has listened. Please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me out a ton. And leave your comments and theories below. I want to see all of the good ones. I'm Dave. You can find my stuff at comicbookherald.com. You can support the site and Krakin Krakoa on patreon.com/comicbookherald. Thank you in particular to those of you who support me at the Mysterious Benefactors tier. Ron Paul Kirkley, Jesse W., Professor Pride, Cole Weathers, Martin Lopez, Chris Isidro, Brent Bowser, Professor X3769, and Petey Appleseed. And I do want to give here a rest in peace to Steve Brennan, who is a longtime patron of the site. Rest in peace, Steve. I'm Dave. You can find my stuff at comicbookherald.com, at Comic Book Herald Online. Look for the best comics ever and My Marvelous Year podcast for more from me. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and as always, enjoy the comics.